All right, what is up, my fellow anti-netters and followers of my YouTube channel? Scott Shepard here, coming back at you. I just got off an hour and a half long call, a Zoom call, with a man named Shawn Twing. And this is an individual who has been in the online marketing game, the knowledge creation game, course creation game for a very, very long time. I believe he said 1996 is what he says in this Zoom call that we just had. And he's an individual that discovered my anti-net Zettelkasten whole movement and book very early on. He subscribed to the Scott Shepard letter, like I think from day one. And he is a kind of a legend in the background within the world of marketing and course creation, essentially for independent creators and thinkers. And he and his former business partner started, who are still on good terms, still friends, started a massive, essentially entity called Tiny Little Businesses, and they were well known for their course. It was called, I think, like, gosh, what was it? It was all about like email domination, autoresponder madness, I believe it was called. It's something that Russell Brunson talks about in his .com Secrets book. And the individual I'm talking about is Andre Chaperon, and the individual I spoke to is his business partner in that venture, and his name is Shawn Twing. And every time I speak to Shawn Twing, I'm like, man, I wish I recorded this Zoom session, and I wish I was able to actually share it with the world. And so this time around, I said, hey, Shawn, let's shoot record our call, our Zoom call on Zoom. And that way I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel so that people can glean insights from what we talk about and what we discuss. And what you're going to discover and the topics that we discussed is we initially had three things to bring to the table. One was like our most recent best book that we read recently. Uh, Gosh, what is that freaking, I don't know, FaceTime camera always like puts up the thumbs up. Look at that. Watch that. That's so funny. Um, so, what's the best book we've read recently? What is the best knowledge tool that we have gotten a lot of value out of? And so we each share our, very best things that we've been kind of obsessed with and fascinated with lately. And we talk about a lot of things in the, we even talk about like, uh, of course, branch into the political realm of like talking about the crazy polarization of the modern day age of Elon versus and Trump, and kind of all the craziness, and when we touch on that, and we're both measured, like we're both not like because on the fringes of each side there's crazies, right? Like the far right, far left. We are two individuals that are not like polarized, where we like to think, we like to think through stuff instead of just hammering our head against the keyboard and just spouting off on X or Twitter, and being like a hardcore MAGA or hardcore like woke left or whatever that is, right? So I want to preface it with that, like if you're looking to get some like you know confirmation of one polarizing political side or the other, you are not in for a treat on this on for this essentially Zoom session and this essentially call that we had. Um, Now, if you are interested in learning about the latest and greatest books relating to AI, learning about the latest greatest practices of using AI and specific tools in your everyday life, if you're interested in learning about certain analog knowledge tools, and I'm talking about my favorite analog knowledge tool that I've been using for the past 2 years religiously, almost every single day, and it is not note cards. It's not 3 by 5 inch cards. It's not 4 by 6 inch cards. I'm talking about some other medium and some other device with specific properties that I think you're gonna really want to hear about. Then you are in for a treat. So get ready. I'm gonna transition into sharing with you our conversation that we decided to record this time, and hopefully you can glean some fantastic value out of our call. All right, I will see you in a moment. Welcome aboard. we are having a podcast session with myself as well as Shawn Twing. And Shawn Twing is an OG subscriber of the Scott Shepard letter and an OG, like, I guess, book purchaser of Antoinette Zettelkasten. When there was crickets, when no one knew, about the book, you were one of the first people, that I got in contact with from the marketing world. And there's kind of a spectrum in the world of, I guess what you can call it, online marketing or knowledge business or knowledgepreneurs or knowledge entrepreneurs. And like on one side of the spectrum are like the people that are not deep thinkers. They're like the 17-year-old life coaches and funnel hackers that just rip off everyone else, right? And try to like blow things up with rented Lambos and like that type. And then there's the perennial guys that last and have been in the game for a long time and love the craft, right? The craft of just marketing, creating knowledge, getting that knowledge distributed, out there to the world. And that's like the deep thinkers, right? And they tend to be solopreneurs, right? Like I would put even Russell Brunson in like that category. He cares about the craft, but he's not a solopreneur, right? They tend to be like solopreneurs like you and your former business partner, or I don't know, former whatever, your friend, Andre Chaperon. You guys the brand that you guys used to have was Tiny Little Businesses, right? And
that was Andre's. Andre was TLB for a long time, and then we worked together under that. And then Andre wanted to do something new back in 2023, so I rebranded as the Modern Marketing System. But he and I had co-created it, so it's still his fingerprints are still all over it.
Yep.
And he and I are still very close. We're dear friends.
Yep. And you guys, both of you fall into the the other spectrum of the category of the deep thinkers, the people that love the craft of knowledge creation, knowledge development, and I'm talking, from PKM to marketing and distribution and just making a fantastic killer living as an independent thinker. So, you and I, we usually have these Zoom calls maybe once every like either year or every 6 months or something like that, and every time we have it, I'm like, gosh, I wish we recorded it because my mind is full. It's about to explode. Not only for my own benefit to rewatch, but also it'd be amazing to share our conversations and, what we talk about with the world. And so that's why we're here. This is like the first pod, I don't know if it'll ever get a name or whatever, but this is it. And how we decided to do this is I said, hey, let's talk about three things via email, that we bring to the table. One is like the best knowledge tool. I'm looking at my screen up here. Best knowledge tool that we're using lately. Maybe the best book we've read lately to share with everyone. And then maybe the best writing tip, prose, etc., something like that. I didn't necessarily prepare a third one, the best writing tip prose. I can riff because I, and come up with one off the cuff, but I'll probably substitute another thing that's on my mind to talk about for the third one. And that's kind of the format that we're gonna go with, and we'll see how far we take it. And so let's do it. You said you have got a bunch of stuff prepared. Why don't you kick things off and do the first share?
Sure. So I don't think I saw the that structure, but luckily,
okay,
I at least get one of them. I've got three things, and the first one's a couple of books. So I'll start there.
Yeah.
And the way I thought about this, and this is what I generally do. I talk to smart people, and I just, it's always fun to have a conversation and just figure out like what has somebody interested.
Yep.
Like, what's somebody fascinated about right now? And
yep.
When you have those conversations, because fascination's infectious.
Yep.
If someone's like super interested in something, they can tell you why they're interested, and they're a mile down the rabbit hole. It's like, oh hell yeah, I want to do that. So, something I got fascinated with lately is I know just enough about AI to know that I don't know anything about AI. And I'm not saying that to be glib, but I recognize the limits of my expertise, and they're vast. So I stumbled onto Mustafa Suleiman's book, The Coming Wave. He wrote it in 2023, but it's one of those books that when I finished reading it, I actually listened to, which I drive a lot. So, the two books that I'm referencing now I've listened to instead of read, but I listen, and I think for those people who are listening, The Coming Wave is about, Mustafa Suleyman was the co-founder of DeepMind. He's now, and he's also he was the CEO and co-founder um, of Inflection AI. And it's The Coming Wave basically it's a book about, but what's coming with AI, like how profound AI and synthetic biology, these two technologies that his perspective is, we have to figure out a way to contain these technologies. Like we don't have any choice or we're screwed, right? That's a very simple paraphrase. It's one of those books when I finished it, I thought, I might, if I could, I might want to go back and not know this. That was really my visceral reaction. But to balance that, because again, it's this one perspective, a very informed perspective, but it's one perspective. So I said, okay, recently Reid Hoffman's book came out, Super Agency, and Super Agency is sort of the other approach, which is, oh no, AI is going to just enable so much, and it's going to make us so much better, and we're going to be so much more capable. It's not the opposite perspective, but it's kind of an opposite perspective. And at some point early on in the book, Reid Hoffman mentions that he's business partners, they're co-founders of Inflection AI with Mustafa Suleyman. And so if I had this moment where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to figure this shit out, and you two guys have you've co-founded an AI company, and you have this vast experience I don't have, and both of you are basically telling me, one of you is saying like, hold the hell on, we're effectively screwed if we don't figure this out.
Yep.
And the other one is like, oh, it's sunshine and unicorns. It's going to be amazing. And I'm like, I just had this moment where I thought, if you guys can't figure it out, what the hell am I? Where do I even? It was such a weird experience.
What's interesting from that is it's not as if they have two polar opposite viewpoints or opinions yet. Like their opinions are like, they're not necessarily fully formed. What it sounds like is they are both looking in completely like different directions, right? Of where this thing is going to go. It reminds me of, I just finished. Well, we'll get into this in my share, the book. But Elon Musk's kind of perspective was a little bit like the former, the first book that you mentioned. Like AI is going to be, something that could, has a maybe a 20% chance or something like that of ending human civilization as we know it. And he was kind of early on, speaking and proclaiming doom and gloom and kind of like a pessimistic, we have to control it, which is what prompted him to want to create open AI. Because he envisioned a world where everyone's models were completely open and all openly competing against each other was a lot better future than everyone, having it like kind of be closed source, which ironically, has, and paradoxically, as has been said, and Elon proclaims open AI is maximally closed source, closed AI, maximally for profit and it's started as an open AI and non-profit. So Elon has kind of like shifted into, well, all right, well, I tried to play the, we need to be freaked out and put on a warning about AI. It didn't work. So I'm just going to dive all in and, create X AI and, that's it. Yeah.
Rip, right?
Yeah.
We also have to think about it. Elon has been pretty vocal about the fact that he thinks we're in a simulation. So if you really do believe that, and I'm familiar enough with simulation theory to understand the basics, and it makes sense. I mean, it's not disprovable, but it's not hard to see the logic in it. And if Elon really believes that, then really the consequences, they get diminished. And if we take it to the logical conclusion, if you're Elon Musk and you're like, look, I'm smart enough to see that if we're eventually going to get to a point in technology where we can create a simulation indistinguishable from reality, we can see that that's on the near horizon. The likelihood that we're the first time that ever happened is effectively zero. So I could see it's not a strange thing to then say, well, what do I care if I'm, contributing maximally to AI adoption, because this isn't really, it's not real
Yeah.
anyway. Like
Hmm.
that, it makes that, it's very congruent. So
Hmm.
that makes a ton of sense
Yeah.
to me.
And so what was basic main takeaway from this was like, okay, if we have two co-founders that can't see eye to eye and are like, their opinion of the future is like kind of diverging in completely opposite directions, you're like, how the heck am I going to be able to make sense of this?
Right.
Or
I mean, and it's almost like, it's one of my perspectives on the big question, like the what does it all mean type questions. I think they're unknowable.
Mhm,
So one of the things I've thought about pretty deeply is if a question is unknowable, then it doesn't seem to be, there seems to be no value in trying to answer it.
mhm,
Like if you just know there's no possible answer.
mhm,
So there was a part of me that said like, okay, if this question is, if I could at least get directionally right and
mhm,
prepare for some unknown future that's accelerating and coming at me pretty quickly, I'd like some direction around that. But if these two people who both they forgot more today about this topic than I'll know in my lifetime, and if they've looked at their body of information and their expertise, and they come up with essentially opposite perspectives on it,
mhm,
there's fundamentally no chance I'm ever going to figure it out. Right.
mhm,
So that just tells me like, well, just stop trying. Like just give up trying,
yeah,
and focus on something else, because I'm not going to figure this out.
mhm,
It kind of messes with my uh, the way I approach the world. I want to have some agency in my life. So
mhm,
I do want to have some thought about this, but
yeah,
there's no solid ground to stand on with AI. That's
mhm,
something I notice a lot. Like it's very polarized. Uh, but there's an underlying sense. I mean, I use AI all the time. I have a newsletter or specifically using AI to grow a small business. Like
mhm,
it's not like I'm a Luddite and I don't like tech, but I don't. It doesn't take it doesn't take much to get a sense of where this goes in
yeah,
5 years, three
mhm,
years. I mean,
mhm,
it feels like we're driving really fast, and there's a
yeah,
clip up ahead, and everyone's like, slam on the gas, like go,
mhm,
go, go. Like, okay.
yep.
But I don't know enough about it.
You know,
It's an
to
odd experience.
to speak to how fast we are moving, you know, earlier today, I was reviewing some of my note cards. I have, as you know, I'm like the note card guy, to some degree, right? And I've been keeping note cards since 2006, um, and that was before this whole Zettelkasten and figuring out a great way to kind of evolve it and always index it and find each individual note card. Um, I used to I call them chaos boxes, completely unordered, 3 by 5 inch cards with like interesting facts about certain things and just interesting ideas that I would glean from books. And, for the first 10 years, I would just I think a chaos box is actually very underrated because people are like, oh, how will I be able to find it? Well, the point is to like put in all of these chaotic random facts, and it forces you to constantly recycle and review every single day, like a small chunk. And I review every single day. And you kind of install that in your working memory. And that's like one of the most, I don't know, effective uses. And so anyway, today I was going through some of these, chaos box note cards, and I saw like it was on the front of the 3 by 5 inch card. It said, what is the most common occupation and employment and job in the US? And I turned the card around and it said, oh, truck drivers. And it's like I think there's like maybe I forgot what the actual figure is, but it's like the number one job and occupation in the United States. And then under it, and I think it was from the book, I think Industries of the Future, something like when I was like starting to plan my like next big thing, I was like, what's going to be the next big thing? So it's like AI, and under it from this book, it said, the most popular job is, truck driving, but it's probably going to be displaced by self-driving cars in the year 2050. That was like the best educated guess. And I'm
Right.
like, 2050? Yeah, right. Like try like, it's sped up so dramatically. Try like, I don't know, 2030, so it's like
Right.
20, they they were off by 20 years. And I think we're going to see that trend, like what we think is going to happen, like, maybe 50 years from now is probably going to happen more like 20 years from now or a decade from now, right? So it's moving at this like hyper speed that we've just never seen before, kind of like the whole singularity theory, right? And like
Right.
which
And it's
I've
all Kurzweil, Ray Kurzweil stuff.
yeah.
And Kurzweil, I mean, I don't do much on Twitter because I absolutely hate Twitter. I did see someone had a tweet the other day that said something about like, here's the form that you can go to and fill out to apologize to Ray Kurzweil. Right? It's basically like the guy was right. Like
Yeah.
he's been right.
Yeah.
And his whole point was that we are at the very base of an exponential curve. And when you're at the base of the curve, like as you approach the base of an exponential curve, it goes like this. It doesn't feel like much. And then all of a sudden it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And,
It's
and
hold on for dear life.
and he talked about this, convergence of these things. And his timelines were like 2030 timelines for things like, I remember, I think I won't get the timing exactly right. He did an NPR interview at one point, and he said, this was like 2012, 2015, something like that. He said, look, if you're under 60 years old and you're listening to this interview right now, you are going to be faced with the possibility of living forever. Like you have to you have to start thinking about that now. And people are like, that's the most ludicrous thing in the world. And all of a sudden you're starting to hear more about that now. Like, okay, as these exponential texts come online and they reinforce one another, we're very likely going to have to confront either a very significantly extended timeline for our lifetime or potentially infinite. What the hell do we do with that? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Now bringing things back down from theory AI land and craziness, which is kind of like the mind fuck type of feeling I get after reading like Homo Deus and Sapiens, right? I'm just like, what is the point of anything, right? And like theory, it's like mind blowing, right? Especially if you read that book for like at your desk deliberately 2 hours straight taking like detailed notes. Like those types of books are just like, how do you like go about operating and answering an email from an accountant to pay like $800 in a state tax or something? You're like, wait, doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Exactly. All right. Tell me, so you've gotten into AI as a newsletter. What is your go-to AI tool in workflow every day? Like, let's go from AI theory back down to like your everyday use of AI, because you always introduce interesting AI tools, or it doesn't have to be interesting, but I'd love to hear your everyday AI tool in workflow.
Yeah, I mean, I started off primarily with Notebook LM, Google's Notebook LM, which I don't use as much anymore. It's a phenomenal tool for does a lot of really great things. What I like to do with Notebook LM is I would put everything from an individual course into Notebook LM, because the notebooks are a discrete entity. It uses Gemini, but it only looks at the contents of that particular notebook. So I can put all the course modules, transcripts, Q&A, the emails that I created for the promotion, the sales page, everything. I could put it in there. And then from that, I could interact with that. And I could, I've used it to create onboarding emails. I don't like to write sales pages, so I've used it to create sales pages in my voice and tone and style. And it was fine. But my go-to, pretty much and I use Claude, I use Perplexity. I've had a $200 a month subscription to OpenAI for a while. I just downgraded it. So I used it. I just wanted to see what deep research was all about when it first came out. But my go-to primarily is OpenAI, as ChatGPT, and I use it a lot. I've created one of the big epiphanies for me was that I felt like I had to do all the things. I had to bring everything to the party to get it to work, meaning that I would have to figure out the frameworks and I would have to figure out all these different things. And what I didn't realize is that I can interact with it. It's an intelligent entity. So I can interact with it. And one of the things that I've done interacting with it is I've built a workflow that models essentially because I used it so much, it understood when I was at my best using it, like what created the longer duration flow sessions. And I just had it reverse engineer that in a series of prompts. So now I just have a structured approach where I'm like, okay, I want to start a new deep, basically it's a new deep work session on, and I put the topic in and some details, and it has the rest of the prompt. and then it cues me, and it knows the process. I like to brainstorm, and then I like to begin to synthesize, and then I look for tangents, but it's a very structured way for me to interact with it.
Yeah, interesting.
But it's funny, something happened recently though, and it has so bothered me that I haven't used any AI tool since. And it's weird. This happened like almost a week ago. Yeah, I think it was last Thursday. It was last Thursday. So this is a very short version. 2 years ago, I interviewed 8 friends, peers, colleagues for it was for a course that I was doing as a surprise for Andre, talked about earlier. At the time that I knew Andre had already left the business, we hadn't made that public yet. So there was sort of this bittersweet thing where I wanted to honor that he had moved on, and it was for his birthday and other things. So I reached out to 8 friends who are legends in the marketing world, people like David Deutsch, copywriter, and Todd Brown, and Kevin Rogers, and Alex Catoni. And I reached out and said, hey, I want to do this thing for Andre. I want to do an interview. And so I interviewed 8 of them. I know them all personally. So I asked them specific questions in the interview, and the interviews were incredible. And I experienced it. It's like, this is like, there's so much pure gold in it. And I've gone back and I've listened to different, so the interviews, and I've taken my own notes and I started to arrange them. But I said, all right, AI tools are great at pattern recognition. I'm going to put all of these transcripts into, I did it with Notebook LM, I did it with Claude, I did it with OpenAI, ChatGPT. And I wanted it to see the patterns that I couldn't see. And it was an interesting experience, and it surfaced some things, and it was great, and it had its own weirdness. And but then one of the things I like to do is a way to prompt my thinking for a value proposition is I give it a very, I did this with ChatGPT. I gave it very specific constraints. Write me a 400 to 500 word email in my voice, tone, and style, where you're selling this product that I've imagined, this course that I've imagined. You're selling it to me, right? Because then I want to see what it thinks is valuable. So it wrote the email, and I read it, and it lied. And I don't mean it hallucinated. I mean it blatantly lied, because it wrote this email to me saying, and it was writing it as if it was me. And I don't have it directly in front of me, but basically what it said was, hey, it's Shawn. I'm really excited. I've been working the last few weeks on this idea, and I can't wait. And I looked at it, I was like, that's not true. Like it's not like it hallucinated. Like I understand like hallucination, but this wasn't it. This was a blatant lie. And for some reason that so struck me. It's like, wait a minute. Why would this tool lie? Like why? Like it could have it could have made the value proposition. It could have just left that sentence out. And it wouldn't have hurt the thing, but and maybe there's some perfectly reasonable, it's predictive, it's mathematical.
Was this one of the ones that also had external data? So it looked out, okay, what is something that can increase conversion rate? Maybe it thought that, in order to actually make this sell, I need to, include a phrase that implies that I've been just working hard on this for the past few weeks.
I mean, right? It made a very strange judgment call. Because as far as it knew, it knew 2 things. Because I went back and I looked, I'm like, have I said anything in here that established a time frame? The only things that it had were the transcripts themselves, which were undated, and the fact that earlier that day I had already used Notebook LM and I'd already used Claude, but that was the day that I was using ChatGPT to do the same, to look for the same things. All it knew is earlier that day, I had started this exercise.
So it completely lied about the 2 weeks.
It lied, and it was really, it was odd because it was arbitrary. Number one, but when that happened, I was like, wait a second, I don't. And it sounds trivial. It's like, oh, who cares if AI lies? Like, I care. If AI, especially if AI lies on my behalf.
Exactly.
I didn't tell it like, oh,
that could ruin the brand.
Anybody.
Not just externally, but mostly internally. Like, and one of the most important things that I learned from studying, great copywriters, like, for instance, Gary Halbert, for instance, is, he had some sensational stuff, but if you read it, he was always super authentic and never lied once. And it's how you sleep great at night, And, I started my career and it's especially, it's not that clear early on. Cause like I started my career at one point, I was a performance marketer, affiliate marketer, and you're in the gutter, like, all the clickbank type of ads, like it's just lies left and right, just blatant lies. And then you discover actually, if you actually want to make a killing and last in this industry, you need to be authenticity and not lying is the number one most important thing. And the best,
Absolutely.
you don't have to lie, right? Like that 2 weeks, you could even say like, and that just ruins everything. Cause then once you see that, you're like,
they could have said it without the 2 weeks. I mean, you could have removed the 2 weeks from the sentence and it was great. Like
yeah,
everything else was great.
yep,
And it was odd. And, for me, I have a very firm rule. It's more of a heuristic than anything else. But any decision that I make, anything that I write in an email, and it doesn't matter, whatever I communicate to my audience, my heuristic is if somebody knew everything that I knew,
mm-hmm,
that I wrote, and if they were standing over my shoulder and they watched everything that happened, would they agree that I was being truthful? Right?
mm-hmm,
Like,
yep,
and if the answer is no, then I won't do it. Period.
yep,
I had this experience years ago when we had switched from ClickBank to Stripe
mm-hmm,
for payment processing, and there was an error. And the error, so instead of charging $14.95 for something, we were charging $1,000. But if you already owned one of our courses, that was not unusual. Orders would come in for $1,000. So it didn't trigger anything. The first few came through, but then there was a point where I was like, wait a minute, only $1,000 orders are coming through. So I went and looked, and sure enough, we set it up wrong.
yeah,
So that had been going on for 12 days. So I sent an email to everyone who didn't own that. And I said, look, here's what happened between this day and this day. If you had decided that you wanted to buy this thing, you could buy it for $1,000 instead of $14.95 because we made a mistake.
mm-hmm,
It doesn't seem fair to have a bunch of people got it for that price. You didn't get a chance. So for the next 12 days, because it was 12 days before, for 12 days, you can buy it for $1,000 with this link.
yep,
And it wasn't a bunch of fanfare. It just, here's what happened. And of course, I had a few people asking me like, this is the biggest bullshit, this and that. But it was so easy.
You're
to
doing
say,
it on
look,
purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, and I recorded a quick screencast, and, and I said, look, I get it. But people do this bullshit all the time.
Mm-hmm,
But look, and I just open up, here's, ClickBank, here's when it happened. Here are the emails I sent to Andre when I found this out. Like, here's everything. So if you could look over my shoulder and see what had happened, you would look and say, yep, it was true. This happened. He didn't know it. It wasn't intentional. He's trying to make it right. No, as a good marketer, it was an opportunity. I turned, to turn lemons into lemonade. I was like, okay, sold a bunch at $1,000. It was great. I was excited for it, but it was true and it was ethical. So when there was just something about this realization that, wow, if I'm not really careful, AI might, or at least ChatGPT might lie on my behalf, which to me is so, it's so outside what was comfortable to me, what is okay for me. It was just,
absolutely.
glaring. It was just a very jarring experience to have. So yeah, it's a long answer to a short question. It was a weird one.
No, that's amazing. That's incredible. And it's funny is very early in my early emails, you could see this. I had this, it started as like a meta tag that I was using to write, when back in the day when I used to use Obsidian for my writing tool. Now I've switched to Ulysses or whatever, right? Like just
I use that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had this like meta tag that was called T_auth_score, and what it stood for is authentic truth score. And so my goal every single time I wrote a piece, and you could see it at the bottom of some of my early emails, was to get 100 out of 100 and write as close to the authentic truth as possible. Just don't sugarcoat anything, right? And like I had it, when I sit down usually to write like a new piece, here's like my, one of my, I'll be sharing this soon, a yellow legal pad of like when I write out the Scott Shepherd letter by hand, at the top I have like, I write down my like dream customer avatar and then my goal, my authentic truth score, right? And I've since removed it from my emails because I had so many people just asking me, hey, what is it? And then I like not having it be there externally, because then people like scroll and like go, oh, is this like a 92 or 93, because like sometimes I'm just hard on myself when you grade for that, because there's some things you don't want to go down the rabbit hole. You'll create an email too long. But I got that, writing the authentic truth from a mixture of, Halbert and then also, Hemingway. He has a famous quote, just write the truest sentence you know. That's all you need to do, one sentence at a time. And when you do that, you're writing just like, you stand out from everyone else, because what you're going to see is out there is like all these fly by night idiot marketers that advertise on Facebook and just rip off and funnel hack at one another. They just they don't bat an eye over that, like, oh, the AI just made that up, okay, I'm just going to copy and paste AI, and who cares about authenticity and truth? But it's everything. If you want to last as a knowledge creator, solopreneur. Hey, before we go on, what are your thoughts on the term solopreneur? I've fallen in and out of love with it, and I'm back to, I kind of like it again, but what are your thoughts on that term, solopreneur?
I don't use it very often, but I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur though. Like I don't have a sense of being, entrepreneurial, which is odd because, what does an entrepreneur do? Adds value to things. So, okay. Right. I think Roy Williams, the Wizard of Oz guy, had some great line about, the businessman buys like grapes. Like I think like the businessman buys grapes and earns a couple of dollars and he turns them into raisins. And then like the entrepreneur buys grapes and then makes a fortune when he turns it into wine. And nobody brings raisins to a party or something like it. It was a beautiful quote that I'm murdering. But I don't. For my audience, I also refer to my audience as creative professionals. I don't know how they self-identify. I'm not entirely sure creative professionals is how they identify, but the knowledge, I've never used knowledgepreneur. Just not
it's too long. It's too long. Knowledgepreneur.
I mean, I should be more interested in solopreneur because I have this fascination with this idea of building a one-person 7-figure business. Like that's really what the newsletter that I write on AI is about, is now that we have those tools available, we can actually do it. Because this has been an inflection point. I've been in the game since 1996, and there have been these weird inflection points. And one was when Google AdWords came out, and it was like, oh wow, I can actually just pay to get high quality traffic. It was revolutionary. And then Infusionsoft came out, which is now Keep, and it was like, whoa, people's behavior relative to like a link in an email can change. Like how I engage was mind blowing. Then, I also put ClickFunnels in there, an all-in-one solution.
Yep.
But there were all these inflection points where I was like, oh, this is, now that we have this, now the one-person 7-figure business is reality. I had a conversation with Sam Woods last September. Last October. He's a good friend. And I just kind of threw it out there. I was like, is AI it? Are we there? And Sam often has a lot of patience with me. And he was just very, very unequivocal. He's like, yeah, of course. Of course you can do. He's like, you need like 2 tools. I mean, at the time he was like, you just need like Notebook LM and Notion AI, and you can do a 7-figure one-person business. Like, here I am behind the times.
Interesting.
And I guess that's technically a solopreneur. So I should be more, I should use the term. Well, maybe I'll start using the term more.
Yeah, I initially fell out of love with it because it's already kind of been bastardized and used, and a few people have kind of branded it to themselves. What's the guy's name? I think Justin Welch is his name. Saturday Solopreneur, and leaned into it. So I'm like, no, I don't want to use solopreneur. That's gimmicky or whatever. Then I've kind of fallen back in love with it because it's I think a more precise. I'm not in love with it. Like I don't like, but I do use it because it helps get the idea of what we're talking about here. Is an entrepreneur is someone that wants to, grow as much as possible, get to 100-person, business, get to it's kind of like entrepreneur is like who Russell Brunson is, and maybe Alex Hormozy are, they want to get to like, the unicorn company, $1 billion company. Why? I don't know, because they're competitive, they're, wrestlers, and they just, more, and whereas the solopreneur is, the one person interested in peace and fulfillment and making, like 7 figures without the headache. And it's kind of like, and there's no right or some people have just different personalities. Like it's like the Warren Buffett lifestyle, which he has like not one thing on it. He doesn't have a calendar versus like the Bill Gates lifestyle, which he is like every 15-minute block filled out for the next year and a half. Right. And they're like two, and
Sounds
both
like
can
hell to
be,
me. All right.
both can be billionaires, but it's like, what preference do you have? And I think so. My upcoming book I've been working on since last year. Then I've been working on building what I call the analog knowledge funnel, like the analog book funnel, analog newsletter, all that stuff. I've been working on it all this year, right? Like the funnel part. I'm like like the funnel and the craft. I've written out every single word is like just as hard as the book to write, right? And that
Right.
book's called Penpreneur. Like, how do you be a solopreneur, with just pen, paper in your brain? No, I call it no crap GPT AI. How do you make six
Right.
figures writing one thing a month? So in doing that, I'm like, you know what? Solopreneur ain't so bad. I don't know. Yeah, that's just
Yeah, it's hard because so much is overplayed now, right? I mean, I have this. I won't ever use this exact term, but I have this like what I think we all really want to be is I think we want to be like intellectual alchemists. We
yeah.
want to turn lead into gold.
Hmm.
We want to take ideas and we want to combine all these things and we want to like create something from nothing, something of value from
Yep.
other things. But so much of what we're dealing with now is anytime somebody has an idea, like a term, whatever it is, all the funnel bros that you talked about before, like it just gets smashed up
Hmm.
against just over and over and overused, and it just becomes a caricature.
Hmm.
And it's really hard to carve out a little space where you're like, look, just leave this alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like stay off my lawn.
Yes.
When you were talking about, optimizing for more earlier, I think people like you and me and the people we attract, I don't think we're optimizing for more. I think we're optimizing for enough,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the only thing I really want is enough.
Yep.
Right. And I don't have like, enough for me is, $1 billion. I would never want that lifestyle.
Hmm.
But and it seems to be the saying, I don't know, obviously Elon Musk doesn't know who I am, nor does Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, but I think Buffett probably comes close. I mean, he does what he does because he loves it. He's that's what he was wired to do. But I
Hmm.
see a lot of really wealthy people who don't seem to me like they don't seem very happy,
Oh yeah.
and they don't seem like they have enough.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, interesting. It's I don't know, and it's funny because there's such a this idea like, oh, why would you know Jeff Bezos want any more money? I'm like, the guy built Amazon and he was like, oh shit, what am I going to do next? Rockets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't, they're trying to fill a hole that can't be filled. And
Hmm.
it's interesting. Anyway, it's just
Yeah.
attention.
So
Let's hear about the book that
you know what?
I'm excited about
Well,
this.
it's a perfect transition because, um, I'm actually I'm reading two books, or I read, I'm still reading one of them, but I'm reading two tomes, massive books. One is, it's insane. We're not going to dive into this one. Maybe we can at another time. There's one called James, the Brother of Jesus by Robert Eisenman. And this guy goes deep into, it's just like he is a fascinating writer that goes deep into, he studied, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he did some badass move of it was the Dead Sea Scrolls were closed source, only owned by this like I think this one institution or academic, and he like snuck in somehow and was able to democratize and photograph them and free them up for everyone else to study. And so I'm making my way through that in the evenings, chipping away to get my mind off of you know just the everyday stuff like copywriting, marketing, writing, creating, all that stuff. There's so it's hard for me to like get home and then want to read a book about like copywriter or marketing. It's like
Right.
freaking so but so I've got that book, but the more relevant one that I just read through, and it reads super fast, this author, and that is Walt Isaacson's book Elon Musk, the biography.
Oh, no kidding.
And I couldn't put it down. It was a page turner. It was, I think, maybe like, I don't know, it's a thick book, 600 pages or something like that. It's pretty beastly book, but he writes in a very short prose way that reads kind of like an article, kind of like junk food writing, frankly, just like very fast, right? But in reading that, I can attest to what you've said. Like he admits and he says freely, if you lived inside of his mind for a day, it's like a hellish storm out of like the hell of Diablo 3. It's just one big storm. And he's, because he's got also a lot of his dad was a psychopath. You can read up on him. Like his father is his father is like, I don't know, 75 something years old and married or had an affair with, married his 30-year-old stepdaughter, his own stepdaughter.
That's a tough anchor to get out from under. Yeah. That's a rough one.
But so Elon has some of that drama, but like the main thing is Elon Musk's brother, Kimball, has said Elon Musk is a drama magnet. He just loves craziness and drama. And we're seeing that play out today. Like, look, you've got SpaceX, right? Which is one big drama, trying to like land and, get to Mars, right? Then you've got Tesla, another massive drama. There's so many things that he's trying to accomplish with Tesla that are just insane. Like, like what about the Roadster 2.0 and just like what, Cybercab, will that actually happen? Like I have a Cybertruck, right? And I put it into self-driving mode and it's pretty good for the most part, but then it's like really dumb. It almost gets in crashes on some certain, turns and stuff. All right. But, then he's got Neuralink, the Boring Company, Starlink. I'm probably missing some. There's other things. And then you have all that drama, all that stuff. And then on top of that, you add Doge, right, to the mix. And it's like he's focused all of his time and attention on that. But you know what? So I read that book recently, and for a long time I wasn't, because I'm like, for a long time it didn't appeal to me because I read his another biography about him in 2016 by, I think the guy's name is like Ashley Vance. And because I internally know that I don't want, to get pumped up and motivated to be a billionaire or like, a workaholic like Elon, I want enough. I want to spend my days reading, writing, thinking at my desk behind me that doesn't have a computer on it, right? And make, 7 figures. Like, and I did that last year in revenue, believe it or not, from more, multiple 7 figures from a small, teeny tiny book about an analog note card system, right? So
it's a damn good book though.
So I'm like very clear on the life I want. I don't want the Elon Musk life. I want the maybe more of like a Warren Buffett life, of the independent intellectual life. So I resisted for like several years, I think at least a year and a half of reading this Elon Musk book by Walt Isaacson. And then I'm like, you know what, fine, I'll pick it up. And it's really fascinating it was fascinating to read and hear the inside story of stuff. What I also got out of it too was, when he went into Twitter, and and I've had some contractors, and there's complacency that can kick in when you're like, I'll just leave it as is, I don't want to have to rehire, retrain someone. And I kind of got Elon pilled a little bit of when he went into Twitter, it was probably like, I don't know, maybe a 4,000 person company. He's like, no, he got rid of like everyone besides the hardcore A team, A players, and it's like running on, 500 employees. I don't know what he got it down to, but but I was kind of, one of my big takeaways from that was like, you know what, sometimes, and I'm talking not just like in work life, but like personal life, like, with people you work with, like, let's just say, I need to say this in a way that makes me not sound like a dick, but let's just say, as an example, a house cleaner or something, right? If they're constantly like a C player, not into it and giving you excuses, stuff like that, or, whatever it is, it's like, you need to rip off the Band-Aid. It sucks. And just with contractors, with whatever it is in any department of life, and go with just the hardcore, the A team. And I got that out of it, which was very, I think, helpful for, I think a lot of people. So I kind of got, that was a helpful piece. The other thing was Elon I truly believe this. He's not money driven. He's like mission driven, but he comes up with these like psychotic missions that makes sense in his mind of, no, we need to, consciousness is a very rare light in the universe. And in order for this light to not go out, we need to become a multiplanetary species, and whether or not like, because some people are critics of Mars or whatever, he like chooses kind of like it's important, and you touched upon, it's like if the purpose of life is unknown, and it's like a book that you recommended to me once, it's like, then one of the best things you can do is pick something with definitiveness and become irrationally passionate and obsessed with that and get lost in time with that. Whether that be, let's freaking get to Mars, or whether that be, let's, I don't know, create some, for me, it's like create a, a book like Anti-Net Zettelkasten about like, a resurrecting a note card system, from the 1970s from a sociologist, and, revive the analog and restore the purity of analog. So it's like, boom, like just, yeah, that's another thing I got out of it. Anyway, that's my share for my book. It's the Elon Musk biography.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I have a very visceral reaction to Elon Musk lately. And as soon as you said it, I'm like, okay, this is, signals from the universe. I don't like to have opinions that I don't deserve.
Mhm.
Like if I haven't done the work, I think it's Charlie Munger who said that, like
Mhm.
you've got to do the work to deserve an opinion. I have a very strong opinion about Elon Musk. That's not, I don't deserve to have it. Right? It's a very visceral reaction. What I wish Elon would do is, he certainly has the resources, but I wish Elon would hire someone. Remember when Barack Obama did his last, he did his last appearance before like the Washington Correspondence or something, and he had, I can't remember the comedian, but it was his anger personality, like, so it was his anger translator. It was so great. So Obama would say something very measured, and then the comedian behind him would lose his mind, like saying what he really meant. Like, what I really wish Elon had was somebody who was like, when Elon goes to do something, that person is like, hey, tell me what it is that you want to do or say here, and let me kind of do it in a way that humanity will appreciate and understand.
Doesn't piss off everyone.
Not your infantile 14-year-old. Like I think a lot of this is I saw that, and I try not to pay attention to anything on Twitter at all, but I happen to see, in an attempt to better understand his persona on Twitter, why it seems to rub people the wrong way so much. I just looked at some Elon on Twitter, and one of the things I saw was, whoever this judge is, who is, he's been a thorn in Trump's side with the whole deportation to El Salvador. Elon Musk, first of all, you don't say the stuff he's saying.
Yeah.
With your audience, but whatever. Anyway, but what he did is he put a picture of a poster of that judge's daughter. She looks like she's probably in her 20s. She works for a nonprofit, and it was somehow the implication of him posting this, and it was typical Elon, very this, like, he just says something very lightly, but the implication was, this judge can't be trusted because he's probably just funneling money to his daughter's nonprofit, such and such. And I have a daughter, she's in her 20s, and I'm thinking to myself, if in my professional capacity, I was acting in good faith, and Elon Musk put a picture of my daughter on Twitter and effectively put a target on him, that to me would be it's an uncrossable line. And it's a line that what he deserves. I think that some of the best thing in the world for this country and this is true for Zuckerberg, for Elon, it's true for Trump, it's true for especially for JD Vance. But these are all guys who've never had their ass kicked. And you can tell. And they all need it. They all need to be in a bar fight, get their ass beat once, and make them much better. I've had my ass beat before in a bar fight. It humbles you, makes you a much better person when you realize, like, mouthing off has consequences. But that, when he did that, I was like, okay, we're not going to be okay. Like, we can't, like, I don't care how smart you are. And I have no doubt he's truly brilliant. I like none of, like, it's funny. There's just little things, like, you can do something that's so outside what's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he doesn't surround himself with people who moderate it.
He
Oh,
is,
and I'm
no
sure
one
that's
said that
part of his
says no.
genius.
He is not one
Yeah,
person that says no.
yeah,
And
no one says like, dude, what is this, right?
yeah.
You know,
And the only person that tells him no and is Kimball, his brother. And Kimball they had, I think, like a 2-year, maybe a multi-year falling out kind of right around or after the Twitter acquisition because Elon would not shut his mouth. And, you know, he sleeps maybe, I don't know, 5 hours a night, maybe. And, you know, he just works like a maniac and then plays Diablo 3 until he goes to bed. And when you're like constantly tired, right? Like kind of like that, your judgment is poor.
it's shot.
And
Right.
if you have if you have like an outlet to the world, right? Like Twitter, and you own that outlet, like you can't get banned for anything that you say now. It's not a good combination. And he's gotten in trouble so many times with saying stupid things, and it's gotten into like, into hot water on so many occasions. Like he alleged that this one guy, you get look this up, he just gets into just so many things. Any natural like disaster, for instance, like when those Thailand, people got stuck in that well in Thailand.
He got in some like fight with those guys.
Yeah, he's like, we're gonna do it, and then he brought some I don't know, SpaceX or Tesla engineers or whatever, and then it backfired on him because he accused one of the guys of being like a pedophile, and so he just gets into these things where you're like, if he had like a 48-hour rule of like his tweets didn't go live for 48 hours, and right before they went live, you said yes or no, do you still want to send this? Like he would solve
a great role.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
He would solve 90%. Yeah. Or I mean, and I get it. I have compassion for him because he said openly that he's on the spectrum. So I think there are probably emotional intelligence challenges that he has that I absolutely have compassion for that. But it's one of those things but you've got nearly limitless resources. So if nothing else, hire somebody who's just kind of your, it just fills in the part like we all need. Any good entrepreneur needs somebody who fills in his or her gaps. Right? And I would love to have somebody, because what I would really love to see is, what's the world like when Elon Musk is at his best and he doesn't have the anchor around the neck of his worst.
Yeah.
Right. And which is what we all want. That's what I want for myself too. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interestingly, well, you go ahead and I'll tell you the next thing I have is kind of it's right in your wheelhouse. So
let's hear it.
To talk about.
Yeah. You go.
So this, I'm going to talk about a book that I've been reading recently, but it's before that. I want to say a book I listened to a book years ago. And it led to a very crazy experience that I think if I were to create the poster for why analog is better, why choose an analog life. So if I had to like sit down and make that, how do I make the case for what you're showing people how to do? This is probably what I would tell them. This is at least a story. So, this was several years ago. I was listening to the audiobook version of Sam Harris's book, Making Sense, which is just a collection of edited conversations that he had on his podcast. Very, very good conversation with brilliant intellectuals. I think I probably bought 100 books as a result of that, because I would hear something that most of it was outside it's just so far outside my capabilities, but there would be things that I would understand enough to say, okay, I can learn more about that and it would be interesting and I should. There's a lot of stuff that's just so far outside my conceptual scheme that I didn't even bother. In that conversation, I don't remember who mentioned, but there was a conversation about Alan Turing and then a reference to Turing's theory of the universality of computation. And for some reason that jumped out. The way that they were talking about it was kind of like, well, everybody knows what a fundamental impact Turing's theory of the universality of computation had. And I thought, based on the description of the term, I understood what it meant. I was wrong. Like I inferred what I thought it was. It was not that at all. But I felt it was kind of one of those things that when really smart people are like, well, everybody obviously knows this and how important it is. I don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, well, all right. Let me go figure it out. So I did my research, which I usually do. I just find best biographies of whoever they are, whatever. And so I read this book called Turing's Cathedral, and it's just all about really the development of the computer era after World War II. so much of that was interwoven with Princeton School of Advanced International Studies, or Advanced Studies, I guess. Like they built it to bring Einstein over, to attract Einstein, and it was kind of haphazard in the beginning, and it was. But the book is it's hard to read. It's not a page turner by any stretch. But there's this scene in the book where Albert Einstein and Kurt Gödel, Gödel being the most one of the most preeminent mathematicians in history. Yeah, they're walking along like this the sidewalk or this park or whatever, and Einstein is reassuring Kurt Gödel, who is racked to his self-doubt, but reassuring that no, he is indeed a smart man and his contributions are important. And there's something about like, if I just asked ChatGPT or went to Google or Wikipedia and just said, oh, tell me about Turing's universality of computation, like what is it? And it summarized it for me, and I'm like, okay, I got it, check the box. That is so fundamentally different than having had the experience of knowing that these two intellectual giants were like walking around, like talking to each other about the most mundane stuff. And here's Kurt Gödel, who is racked with self-doubt, who is, Kurt Gödel's incompleteness theorem is the pinnacle of mathematics. And like that experience was so profound. I'm like, that's what happens when you really devote to this lifestyle that you're talking about. You have a quality of experience that is incomparable. It's not a little bit different. Mark Twain said he talked about the difference between a lightning bug and lightning, right? That's the difference here. I could have checked the box and learned the basic overview, who was Alan Turing. I could have, understood theoretically as much as I could his universality of computation, but I wouldn't have put all of that into a memorable context that made it so meaningful.
That you will have for the rest of your life too.
Yeah, I can't forget it, because it's so like part of who I am. I just had this experience again in a very different way over the weekend. My birthday was on Monday, and one of the things I bought for myself for my birthday was a biography of Muhammad Ali. My dad was a big fight fan. I was born after the Frazier Ali, Foreman. Like I was born around that time, but I never saw them in their prime. But my dad did. He loved Ali, and Ali has this huge presence. And George Foreman died recently, and I've watched the Rumble in the Jungle probably 20 times, because it's such an amazing thing that happened. Ali was basically Ali was 32. He'd come off. He hadn't been fighting for several years. He was just coming back because of the whole draft stuff. And George Foreman was like way scarier in his time than like Mike Tyson in his prime. And everybody thought Ali was going to get destroyed, and Ali beat Foreman, knocked him out in the 8th round. But I wanted to read this bio, but when the bio arrived, and it's like this thick, and I'm like, oh shit. But I sat down with it, and I've been reading the biography, and every time I get to a fight, I watch the fight. And that experience of like biography plus the fight, it's not a little bit different. It's 1,000 times different. Right? Like it's because you essentially you read like everything that's going on. What was going on for Ali? Okay, he fought wherever Sonny Liston, and when you just watch the fight, it had a certain quality, but you don't know Liston was everyone was terrified of Liston, like what a big deal it was, and then you watch the fight, like this is like it just adds this richness. You're not gonna get that.
You're not going to get that from a bullet point on ChatGPT response.
No, it's not like there's something happening now with this synthetic intelligence, like where it's like, it's sugary sweet, right? And it's got like whatever, but it's not nutritious. Right. You're just like, oh yeah, like I'm learning so much. I mean, so many of these AI bros are, like you learn so much. You don't learn shit. You don't learn anything. The things that I actually know are the things that I have taken, like taken notes on. Like if I look back, like if you ask me like, what are like 5 really impactful podcasts that you listen to, I could tell you 5, and every single one of them would be one where I didn't look at a transcript after and copy and paste. Like I took my own notes. Painstakingly, and I referred back to them.
I can think of
I've interacted with
right
them,
now.
right? we're in danger of screwing
Yeah.
ourselves, of like really thinking we're so smart right up until we realize we're so dumb.
What I do like about I agree with you 100%. And I used to probably about like 6 months ago just never really even used crap GPT is what I call it, right? uh but what I have discovered is that the one benefit use case, the thing I do love about Chat GPT is, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like the mobile web has just gone to shit in terms of ads blasting you. So the user experience of trying to find out an answer for something just basic, like or simple, like for instance, you're watching a documentary or something on Alexander the Great, and you want to know about this fact or like this battle or something. Pre-Chat GPT, the experience was you go on Google and you search, and then you click through maybe 3 to 5 articles, and probably out of let's say 5. Out of those 5, 3 of those 5 are kind of clickbait ad stuff lists to get you to like accidentally sneeze and hit your nose and click an ad, right? Like, and that experience has gotten even worse today. It's just insane. Like with just the ad experience of like basically the Google search experience on mobile, even to some degree desktop too, is basically here's 5 links. Probably 4 out of 5 are gonna slow down your device's memory with like the cognitive overhead load of all the ads, and you're gonna get some crappy stuff. Instead of that, now my experience is like I pull up Chat GPT, I hit the dictate button to like audio speech to text, right? Which is amazing on Chat GPT. It's better than Grok. I've played with Grok. I do like Grok to some degree because you know especially for like image generation, stuff like that. But I go back and forth. But the thing that Grok does not have, but they're moving like so fast, is ChatGPT's speech to text is like flawless for like crazy weird terms that it shouldn't know. Like if I'm saying like Epiphanius, or like any or Eusebius or Ebionites, like these ancient Judean or first century, figures, right? Like Grok will type it out as YOU and then say BS, right? And then ChatGPT gets it perfectly, right? Stuff like that. But anyway, like with you don't have to experience the 5 blue links from hell and ad experience with ChatGPT, which is nice. But it's not a replacement for thinking and neuro imprinting an idea and a framework on your mind that you're going to have forever, right? And it's kind of just, I don't really use it, maybe maybe sometimes I'll use it to brainstorm a title for like a product, like a knowledge product or a course that I want to create. And then what ends up happening, I'll like say, hey, give me 10 ideas, alternatives to this name. And then I'll throw away all 10 ideas that it gave me. But one word in one of the 10 ideas gets me on a train of thought that becomes helpful, right? That's essentially where we're at with AI right now. It's super impressive. But anyway, yeah, thanks. That was a good share. I kind of went off on a tangent on it.
No, it's a fun tangent. I think one of the things that really makes ChatGPT stand out for me, and I didn't know this until recently, but ChatGPT has memory, and it can learn about you. I mean, and the more it learns about you as an individual, as a specific person. I mean, there's some settings that you can change. At first, you can turn memory off if you don't want it on, but you can also tell it to only share its memory about you with you. It does it. That's not fed back into the system. But when it starts knowing more about you, you can design a system where it can get much better. It can make the experience of you using it way better because it understands in as much as a machine can understand, I suppose. But it begins to develop a very profound understanding of you as a unique entity. And that gets really weird. I didn't realize that it even did this. And then Rich Sheffrin that's created this program called Zenith 9. because I've been doing that, and I'm doing it one-on-one with Rich. And Rich is a genius. I mean, he's one of those people who's not satisfied with like the top 1%. He's got to go to the 0.001%.
Mm-hmm.
And but that revelation that it's like, oh, okay. Like, not only did it know, I mean, here's a perfect example. Rich uses this example, but I use this example all the time too, is Robert Kegan's subject object theory. And Kegan was, I think he's a Harvard psychologist, but he has this theory of adult development, but for a theory of development where essentially the process to adulthood is to continuously make more things that we're subject to object, right? So when we're a kid and we're hungry, we don't know that hunger is a thing that can be managed. We're just hungry and we have to eat. Or if we're sad, we cry, right? You're subject to it.
Yep.
You don't think you have any agency because it doesn't occur to you. And as you become more and more sophisticated, you make more things object, right? Like I used to have a temper, and I still could if I wanted to. I have a pretty nasty temper, but I can have somebody be, treat me like a jack, come up to me and be like, hey, you're an asshole. And I could just stand there, right? And like Viktor Frankl's stuff about, in Man's Search for Meaning, that we get to choose our reaction to things. Like I don't have to be subject to like, you call me an asshole, I'm going to punch you in the face, and just be like, oh, well, maybe you're right, and like walk off, right? But ChatGPT knows Kegan's subject object theory, and you can, as it gets to know you in a very structured way, you can ask it like, what are there things that I'm not seeing that you see that I might be subject to?
Yeah.
And I did that, and it told me something that I was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Right? And something very profound. Like I had this very weird, I have very high productivity drive, but I had it for the wrong reasons. And they were reasons that were no longer valid. And they were reasons that didn't serve me well, but they came with consequences that I was not aware of. And I felt them, I experienced them. And in about 30 minutes of interacting with this entity, it surfaced to me and reflected to me that, hey, you know what? You're responding to something as if you have no choice about it, but you have agency here, and you can make a different choice if you were to make this subject or make this object. And it was like, okay, shit, like that. That's pretty crazy stuff. So there is something like that. I mean, if you want to do an internal family systems session with ChatGPT, it knows ISS, and it'll do a damn good session with you, and it will remember your answers.
Yeah.
And it will remember that about you. And if
for how long? Do you know the frequency? Is it for life? Is it, or is there like,
you can go in and manage the memories, and you can, and if you look at something and you're like, no, like I don't, because it just shows you.
Oh yeah.
So you can go in and you can pull things out. I mean, you can tell it things like your Colby score, your Myers-Briggs, like whatever is relevant, like you think is relevant. You can just
that's interesting.
And you can ask it to remember it. And you can do something like you can say, and I did this. I can't remember exactly what it was about recent. Oh, one of the things I talked about, I shared with ChatGPT recently, is it was giving me feedback about some things, but I said, look, here's the thing. I'm a very visual spatial thinker. And I'm very visual to the point, like if something goes in a drawer or in a closet, it doesn't exist for me anymore. Like in a very weird way, it stops existing until I stumble on it later. I have to see it. So I like that visual nature of things is very important. And then there was some dialogue and ask questions to further refine, like, what about this versus that? And we answered it. And at the end, I just give it a prompt. Please save this to your memory for future conversations. And then later, when it's interacting with me, it's making a suggestion about something. It's making those suggestions knowing that I have this very highly visual nature. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
That was a tangent. But
after this, I'm going to tell it that, I'm an INTP personality trait, all
I'm
that
an
stuff.
INTJ,
Right?
so there
Are
you
you?
go,
Nice.
right.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Cool. All right. What's your next thing?
All right. Here's the next thing. It's kind of, we're going completely away from AI mode. And that is, here's my past, it's this. Do you see this? These are all yellow legal pads filled out, completely. These are heavy actually too. Got a bunch more.
A stack.
Yeah. And, a lot of people think that, oh yeah, I'm like the note card guy, 4x6 inch note cards, or note cards are my thing. And, note cards are a great tool, especially if you're working on like a large book that requires a lot of research and you're like, creating a book, or like, it's also useful if you have like one core important idea that you don't want to ever forget into like the black hole of digital and, Obsidian and just forget about, right? And install it in like the Zettelkasten, right? So note cards are like, yeah, but my dominating like analog knowledge medium and device for the past 2 years, have been yellow legal pads. And they're so underrated because everyone, like, especially in the analog knowledge space, they get obsessed with either, a small faction of either like, Zettelkasten, or they're like, they get obsessed with Moleskine journals, or they get obsessed with, what is the other stuff? Bullet journals. Like, are you a Bujo person? Right. Stuff like that. And all of these like notebooks and, notebooks, and even Zettelkasten, it has an appeal to people, and it can be like this procrastination device because a person is like, oh, I'm just going to, map out my thoughts in my Moleskine notebook or my bullet journal, and I'll have it forever because it has a physical, and I've got a stack of Moleskines over there that I've just never really gone back to. But when I created the notes, I was like, okay, well, I'll do the work now and I'll have it forever. So what I'm creating is the output. It is the end result, right?
Right.
A yellow legal pad makes no such claims and appeal to be like this, oh, I'm going to have this forever, right? A yellow legal pad is ephemeral in nature, like, because these, the pages rip off easily. They get lost. It's hard to go back and reference a certain page, a certain idea, because they're not numbered. It's flimsy. It's not meant to last forever. It's meant to like, they're meant to act as staging posts for you to create something and immediately get that creation out into publishable form, out into the world, because otherwise you've just completely wasted your time and you're not going to be able to go back to it. That's why yellow legal pads also, when writing on it, it's just like the pad and paper behind it are perfect for like the pen, instead of just writing on regular paper and stuff like that. And so like every single issue of the Scott Shepard letter, which is like, grown like significantly over the past, 2.5 years, have been written on these things. Every single, piece of copy that I write, any important email that I write or autoresponder that I write, I do it first, by hand on a yellow legal pad. I've written like all this year, I've written this massive, got them over there, 2 yellow legal pads full of my upcoming book for the sales page. Every single word character has been thought out on these things. And the best part about it is that anything I create or put down on a yellow legal pad gets out into the world, like it's published, right? Because otherwise it's useless. They're just the perfect staging post, and they're perfect because they're imperfect. They're ephemeral. They don't last. They decay because they're flimsy, and the pages rip off and you lose it, which it makes no bones about being like this Moleskine commonplace book that you can reference forever. No, it's like
Right.
through that shit. Like I have so many notebooks that have filled up and spent days doing that I could have actually created a piece of outward facing knowledge instead. And that's why I love these. So the yellow legal pads are my knowledge product device that I think doesn't get any love today. And so that's my share.
I like this. I like this idea that what makes the thing that you would think would be their weakness is their strength, right? They're ephemeral.
Yep.
So you think like, well, that sucks because like I want them to be, whatever. I want to be able to refer back and have some indexing system so I can see.
Yep.
And it's like, no, you don't actually.
No, you don't.
Because,
yeah.
Then you get the illusion. Then you fall prey to the collector's fallacy. You're like, well, I have all these things, therefore they're valuable. It's like, no, there's no value in collecting all those things and having all your bullet points just so. The value is that you create something from.
Yep.
Like, I think that's really the essence of that intellectual alchemy that I was talking about before. That it's like, it's not the notebook for the notebook's sake. It's the notebook for the sake that you're creating gold as a result.
Yep.
You've made the gold. You're not just writing the formula for how to do it someday.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly. Yep.
And I love that they're tactile too, right? And that they're
not
so precious that you will scribble something out. Somebody you get a beautiful, and I've I have millions of them. These gorgeous notebooks. Like, I can't write a word in this unless it's
Yes.
perfect.
Yes, exactly.
And it's like, wait,
Yeah.
well, nope. I use, this is the size paper that I use all the time, just because I have small handwriting.
Kind of got blurred out. Show it up again, because it got blurred out by the background.
Yeah, this is the size here. Put it from
Oh, wow, that's a very unique size. What is that?
I have small handwriting too. It's probably 8 inches by 3. I use it vertical and horizontal, but it's you can kind of see. I have really tiny handwriting, so you can see like super tiny handwriting.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's just and sometimes it's vertical, sometimes a quick note. Oftentimes in a conversation like this, like I'll write down a sentence, and that sentence is, it's the Trojan horse. It carries so much weight. I had this conversation, I'm sure it's in here somewhere too. I had a conversation back in February with Kevin Rogers, founder of Copy Chief, and he's a dear friend. And we were sort of talking about the state of marketing education and like what's going on in with that world. That as a market has just been completely decimated, and we were bouncing some ideas around it. He said something, like one sentence that was really in like 5 words communicated the central thought, the central problem. And it's like, and I have somewhere in the stack of paper, I have that, written in pencil, where he said that thing, and that thing actually created that thing, coalesced 6 months of thinking. It created the impetus for a product that I created. I just barely finished up today, a 6-week course. Like all of those things came from a sentence I wrote down in pencil on a throwaway piece of paper.
Beautiful.
Like that's it. It's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And you didn't necessarily take that sentence and file it away in your commonplace book and reference it and be like, oh, I'll have it. No, you turned it into a 6-week product. Like it's because if you didn't, you would lose it forever. So it's like it's the perfect anti-procrastination device. Like these, like you want an imperfect staging post of analog knowledge that forces you to get it out into the world and produce. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a story. I think Elizabeth Gilbert tells this story. I don't know why I think it was her. It might not be. Now I'm having a second. Anyway, I won't get any of the details right, but the story is so beautiful. It was about this woman who I believe was a U.S. poet laureate. And she talked about her, I think she grew up as like a cotton farmer or something. I mean, so she was like working in the fields, but she said that she would feel a poetry coming on, like a verse coming on, and she would sprint to the house and she would write it, like she would sprint to catch it and to write it down. And sometimes, I think even the story was like, she remembered like sometimes that she felt like she was pulling it back and that she was writing in reverse because she was trying to catch this thought out there. And for some reason, and it's funny because I had such my memory of it's so imperfect, but there's something about when you write something on a legal pad or a piece of paper that's not precious and beautiful or whatever, that there's an immediacy to it. Like this is going to be gone if I don't do something with it.
Yep.
Like the clock's ticking. And if that idea that I heard somebody say that day in a call, if I don't grab that and run with it, it won't be there in 3 weeks. It won't be there in 2 weeks.
Yep.
And I don't know why that medium does that, but wow, it does it.
Yep.
Because I mean, look at this. This stack is ridiculous. Look at this crap. Right? I mean, this is like, if I don't, that's not going to cue me at some point later at just the right time and show up and, write something for me. Right? If when I'm taking those notes, I don't do something with them, something doesn't get done.
Yep.
And if I look back at a quote that I wrote 3 months ago that somebody said, and I'm like, oh, it was super meaningful, but I don't remember why.
Yes, exactly.
It's gone. Yep. Right? It's like, I gotta have it there.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I love it. Well,
I got one more thing to share with you.
Yes, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
More. All right. So this is a request of your audience. This is a request for the world, actually, which is, I would like to see us get back. Maybe get back is the wrong way. I would like to see everybody who wants to comment on anything, especially politics. I would like to see us get back to a deeper understanding of Occam's razor. Right. I mean, usually Occam's razor is interpreted as, all things being equal, the simplest explanation is true. That's not what Occam's razor is. It's really, when you're comparing two possible explanations, the one with the fewest assumptions is usually the correct answer. Like that Occam's razor. And there's this great, I think it was Mark Burnett. I heard this story secondhand. And I think it was in a book from Mark Burnett. Mark Burnett was the producer for The Apprentice, and takes some credit for Trump's rise. I think the way I heard the story was that Mark Burnett basically said that they would film an episode of The Apprentice, and then they would bring Donald Trump in, and Donald Trump he hadn't really paid any attention to anything that anybody did. Like he wasn't there watching them or anything. He watched a little tape maybe or whatever. He made some decision about who was going to get fired for reasons that were not anything you and I would call logical, right? And then they would film that scene, and then the producers of the show would have to go back and edit all of their footage so that decision made some kind of sense, right? So it was kind of like, they gathered some information. Donald Trump did his own thing, and then they had to change everything
to fit the narrative.
And it's to fit the narrative. And it's such a beautiful metaphor. Like last night I was on X, just apparently because I wanted to feel bad. And I usually only, if I'm on Twitter, if I'm on X, I usually only will look at the following tab, like not the recommended for me thing.
Yeah.
Last night I wanted to understand the broader. I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by the attraction to Trump and the fact, from an intellectual perspective, I'm fascinated by how it's a unique phenomenon, and it's a really fascinating phenomenon. Is that we have two large, we obviously have much more nuance in this, but there are two groups of people who are talking about the same thing, and they're not describing it in the same way at all.
Yeah.
But we don't have a shared sense of reality, which is fascinating. And I was looking at Stephen Miller. Trump, I don't know what he does for Trump, but he's been around for a while. But he had some tweet about, essentially it was, what you just saw. And I think Cameron Levitt said this too. But basically the idea was what you just saw was, an example of the most masterful strategic art of the deal, like effusive praise for Trump. And I was looking at it and I was like, I don't think that's what happened. I think he did something and it completely blew up.
Yep.
And he went, and everybody was like, hey, Don, shit's getting real now. Bond market's going now. I mean, Trump even said that. Like, I mean, he basically said it, but it was so fascinating. So I started thinking to myself, like, it is interesting to me, and you see this a lot on Twitter in general, but something will happen and there will be two narratives.
Yep.
One narrative is usually, like in this example, Donald Trump did something that was not particularly well thought out. The math wasn't right. The economists who were recommending it aren't really that great. It blew up in his face, and now he's got to figure out a way to walk it back. It kind of seems right. And then there's this other narrative that's like 65 assumptions. That's like, no. What you're seeing with your own eyes, that's not what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
What really happened was this.
3D chess.
It was this, and Donald Trump plays 4D chess. I think the guy who they used to have to edit
it's the same guy.
It's the
same guy.
And I think, and you can like him, or, I mean, I don't, it's like, if you do you, I'll do me. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to do you. You don't tell me how to do me. If you want to go full guns, MAGA, you love Trump, respect. You get to do that, as long as you don't try to tell me I can't do that, or we're not doing that. But it is fascinating to me that there isn't this, there seems to be a very intellectually defensible, clear, few assumption narrative that's kind of like, Donald Trump is really good at telling people what they want to hear, and he's popular. He's attracted an audience around him that has a cult-like fervor, and he's backed by people like Peter Thiel and others who have so much money that they're used to being able to do whatever they want. But the only entity that can tell them they can't do what they want is the government. So they want the government gone because they want to be able to do what they want. And it's a pretty clear narrative. It doesn't take 200 assumptions. But the fact that it coexists with this other narrative. And there's
Yep.
so much evidence of this. And
And
I don't know why it's
4D
just Twitter.
chess. And then there
Yeah.
is also the, people just are obsessed with like literally scared at night and can't go to sleep because they're obsessed with and convinced that, Trump is engineering this, Project 2025 thing. Right. And I know, there's like just, and it's like, I don't think he's, he's literally, successful and effective because he's so simple. Right. And his message is so simple. It's like, third grade level. Right. And polarizing and clear. And he just goes all in, on one direction. Right. And it works because it's, it's being polarizing and kind of like charismatic and a psychopath in one direction is a lot better in a lot of cases than being confusing and mumbling and tempered with everything. Right. And it works. And it's like, yeah, it's interesting. I've seen him. Yeah. He will promote just like some of the dumbest, griftiest stuff out there. And I know it's a personal experience with I know individuals behind certain crypto projects that he's promoted. I'm like, how the heck did their team not do due diligence on certain people? Right. And it's because he just moves fast, doesn't, think through stuff and plays it, and it's not that insanely complex. It's such an interesting thing because it's like looking at the options and it's like, well, I don't know, like the options for candidates out there. It's like, well,
Yeah,
they're polar extremes.
Yeah, and it's weird to see it. I don't know why it seems to be just Twitter. And maybe I'm just not. I don't spend much time on social media at all, so maybe I don't see it elsewhere. But Twitter has this really fascinating anti-Occam's razor
Oh
vibe.
yeah.
That's why it's fascinating. Because it's like, you'll see a picture of something, and it's like a picture of Kamala Harris getting her COVID vaccine. But the real story is, and then it's like, and this other thing, and I'm like, what? And everything, for some reason, anytime I click on the, anything that I'm not following on Twitter, I just click on the recommended or whatever it is called. I see story after story where it's like, it's the same format all the time.
Yep.
The thing that you thought was true, that seems kind of obvious and simple, is not. What's really true is the most convoluted explanation. Hillary wasn't dehydrated. She was being let off in chains because she's a Satanist. And and I look at this and I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't have firsthand knowledge, so I don't know. But at the same time, if I compare the assumptions here, Hillary on the campaign trail, it's pretty strenuous, whatever, dehydration, X number of assumptions versus 68 contingent assumptions. I'm like, it's a funny mindset to me.
Absolutely.
It's a funny, I know I have some biases because like you, I know the dark underbelly of the marketing world.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump to me just always feels like the worst marketers I've ever encountered. Like the guys that just would sell you anything I know I'm, going back to subject object, I'm subject to that. So when I see Trump, I kind of see an amalgam of the worst people I've ever had interactions with who are marketers who will tell you anything that you want to, they'll tell you, they'll sell anything to you to get the sale. And that's all they care about. And I'm not saying that's necessarily true for Trump, but what I'm saying is that's who he reminds me of. I mean, and that's a lot of his character. I mean, he's a showman.
Mm-hmm.
He's he's kind of a carnival barker, right? He's a game show host, basically. Like our country now is owned by a game show host. And it is what it is. But it's just it's so funny to me when it's so obvious, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like that there's this alternate reality where it's like he's not a game show host.
Mm-hmm.
He is the most sophisticated, it's 12D chess. And I'm like, I don't think it's checkers. I'm not sure we're playing Connect 4 here anymore. Yeah. But I don't know.
So I'll say one thing on this, and I actually don't have a third. Maybe we'll talk about my third share on the next one or something like that, because it's a bigger topic of a curiosity of mine that I need more time to churn over in my mind. But I want to share, because it relates directly to X and what you're talking about here. I think what's kind of crazy is um, they are using X, because Elon's just like, hey, just test it, ship out different algorithms, right? It's kind of scary because with I don't know how many users there are on Twitter. Let's just say there's like 1 billion users on Twitter. I don't know if it's that high. Okay. Let's say I don't know whatever the number is. They're conducting a mass social experiment, just rolling them out on with their algorithm updates. And one of the updates, at least I've noticed with my feed, and I've got some covert accounts that I that I like to like log in and use so that it doesn't have built-in biases. And then it's funny to see what it thinks you're into or what political party you're into, and see what the differences are in the stories that you get recommended. But I've noticed this trend lately. I'd be curious if you noticed the same, and it happened probably in the last starting like a week or two ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And it used to be when you click into a polarizing post, let's say you click into like a post by the Twitter account, like End Wokeness or something, and they're all about end wokeness, or like, let's say you click into, I don't know, whatever, Jordan Peterson or Ben, whatever his name is. I don't know. I forgot his name. What's that?
Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro. Right. You click into one of the posts and they say something like you agree with. Hell yeah. Like, screw the woke, something like that. You expect, and what you want, when you click into that are like 5 really funny comments confirming and riffing off of that to make it like, even you're like, oh yes, they're confirmation bias, right? They're confirming that this post is right. And what ends up happening, you're in this echo chamber, and you when you see that, all of a sudden you believe that. And I'm describing the old Twitter previous to 2 weeks ago. Now, what I've seen in my feed, depending on whatever you click on, like let's say I click on the in wokeness, that is praising, let's say, Elon Musk. The first like 3 to 5 comments now are like people hating on that post, and the opposite. So you're like, oh no, wait, cognitive dissonance are here. Like there's like, I want to only see confirmation bias because it's a lot easier than me now having to parse through this entire thread and seeing, okay, what are the comments that agree and what are disagree? So I think what they have done is they realize that they've just created this one massive echo chamber that's like anyone that clicks on a thread, they're just like creating confirmation bias into what they agree. But now they've created it so that it's a lot more like a group chat, because Elon Musk recently said, oh, Twitter is like X is like the group chat for the world, where they're trying to get it so that when you click into a post, you're seeing both sides kind of argue, so it doesn't look so biased that you're only seeing the stuff that you want to see, which is it'd be interesting because they're probably setting up some massive long-term A/B test of, okay, when we introduce this randomness comment feed that have both polarizing sides instead of confirmation bias, only the side that you like, what is the 2-week retention rate, the 30-day retention rate, the trustworthiness in Twitter? Because they might have done that because they're like, we don't want all the people who are like not pro Elon to just go over to Blue Sky, or they're trying to reinstill trust that you'll hear both sides of the argument in the feed. Anyway, have you noticed that at all, or is it just, maybe it's just my feed?
Well, I mean, it's interesting when you said it. I didn't. I mean, I can't tell you the AB version because I just so thoroughly don't engage with Twitter. But I happened the other day. I'm trying. One of the things I try to do, like, if you ask me, if you're just like snap judgment, do you like what Elon's doing? Do you not like it? I'm like, I don't like it. But I also know I haven't done the work to have that opinion. So I've actively tried lately. I'm like, okay, like let me go see some of this firsthand. What kind of behavior is going on? And I did know, and I happened to click on something he had posted the other day. And I did see that actually, like the first 2 or 3 responses were sort of the same meme that was attacking Elon. And, and there was another, like one that kind of periodically showed up with like the same graphic where he looks stupid or something.
Yeah.
Very infantile, right? The whole thing was very infantile. But if you try to do some like inductive reasoning here, where you're like, okay, I think it's inductive, where you're going up instead of like trying to deduce down. I guess it would be deductive reason, but if that's the output, Like if that's the change that's happening, then you would ask yourself, like, okay, what are they trying to get for, like, what would lead you to want to do this as an experiment, right?
Yeah.
Is it that do you want to create the illusion of dissent, or did you over calibrate to too much echo chamber
Yeah.
where then somebody just won't engage with an Elon Musk post if they don't agree with him, right? Because they're like, I'm not welcome here. But maybe it's this idea that, like, at least see some of your people, whoever your people, at least see some of your people in every thread. I did notice this yesterday because I did click on, I couldn't help it. I clicked on Stephen Miller's tweet because and I think Bill Ackerman maybe had tweeted too, and he's been super critical of Trump, and then he had this like very effusive praise tweet, like, of how brilliant Trump was, and people were like, dude, like 4 hours ago you were like, end of the world, this guy's a moron, like, come on. So there was a real interesting, it did feel like an environment where Twitter to me never feels like an environment where people are really having intelligent conversations. There's just so much, there's so much nonsense, but it didn't feel like I clicked on Stephen Miller and saw like every single person was like, yeah, you're right, he's a genius. But I would say 70-80% of them did, which makes sense though. That's probably a real world thing. Because I'll tell you, I'm not going to follow Stephen Miller because I don't need to. I can write his script for him. Like, I can tell you what he's going to say. I'm not going to learn it. And I'm guessing that the people who don't like what he's going to say, probably by a 7-1, 8, 9-1 margin, aren't following him on Twitter. So
won't
it would
click
make
on his
sense
post,
that you would see,
right?
you would make sense that you would see a minority of people disliking him. And maybe that's what they're trying to do. No, excuse me, is exactly what you said. Maybe they're trying to see if they can get the algorithm to actually closely match reality, right? Like the percentage of people who follow Stephen Miller because they like him is probably somewhere in the 9-1 range, 10-1, whatever range. And maybe the algorithm is trying to accurately represent them. Like, and to me, that would be a noble act.
Yeah.
Like I like, if you're like, look, we want our algorithm to display reality more accurately to the world. Because that's not what the Facebook algorithm. So, the Facebook algorithm, and I've done a ton of Facebook advertising. The Facebook algorithm is absolutely giving you more of whatever you have shown any interest in to get you to buy stuff. That's the whole algorithm, is to influence your opinion, primarily to buy, it's not necessarily buy, but to engage with ads.
Spend more time on the
engage with
platform.
properties that you're going to click on so that they can charge advertisers. And the entire experience is geared to that. And I've seen it, and I've worked with Facebook reps, and I've had them say things they weren't supposed to say, and like realize they weren't supposed to say them. And a lot of that info has come out. Facebook is a reinforcement engine, period. It will, whatever you show it you like, it will show you more of it over and over and over and over again. In a very weird way.
People don't want to
race to the bottom.
Not have that reinforcement because it requires them to think. They go to Facebook so that they can not think, right? And just have their opinions reinforced, right? And
they begin to think that's reality, which gets very strange.
That's where it gets scary, right? And I
mean, and if you think about it, if you looked around there, them looking around my physical environment, if everybody I talked to, I mean, pick a team. Let's just assume everybody I talked to was pro-Trump, was diehard MAGA. And any store I went into, it was all Trump. When I went to buy a vehicle, it was all about Trump. If everything I did was all about Donald Trump, and you came to me and said, look, the majority of this country doesn't like this guy. You're insane. Trump derangement syndrome. You're making shit up. Like, you're crazy. Because, you don't know that a lot of people think their Facebook feed is a reflection of reality. Like, you go to CNN and you see CNN, you go to Facebook and you see Facebook. And it's like, no. Your Facebook feed is a reflection of what you have told Facebook you're likely to click on, and it shows you more and more and more. And if you don't know that, holy shit.
Oh, I know.
Right? Like, it's like the Truman Show, right? If you don't know you're in if you're on the set, like, shit, and then somebody tells you, like, wait, what?
Well,
tangent.
it's it gives you anxiety going around the world, especially if like, I own a Cybertruck, right? And so
Right.
whenever I go on X, I see like, 5 people spray painting Nazi symbols on and lighting Cybertrucks on fire. So like that conditions me, and I'm in Orange County, which is like hardcore, like the only Republican on, county on the coast, right? That are mostly like pro Elon. But it gives me like anxiety where I think like, oh wait, I can't go to this part of town and park my Cybertruck there because it's gonna have a Nazi symbol on it. And then you go out into the real world and you realize, oh, everyone's chill, like no one's, it's
no one
not that
cares.
bad. Yeah, I'm only seeing like but what I'm exposed to, it seems as if every time you walk outside, you have a 80% chance of your Tesla getting keyed or something like that. And it doesn't reflect reality. Yeah.
You're always 5 minutes away from someone paying a dick and there's Tesla, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people, when they see your Cybertruck, they're just laughing at you because it's goofy looking.
Oh,
That's all.
yeah.
Well, I had to
that
make at least some wisecrack about your Cybertruck.
I already see all those comments in the YouTube comments. Okay, I'm immune to the Cybertruck hate. Yeah.
But it's so funny too. It's like at the end of the day, who cares, right? Like, it's just it's
so polarizing
thing.
Yeah,
it's like if you want to whatever do that thing. It's when it's that weird imposition from that's the weird thing to me. Like I don't want somebody to tell me what I can and can't do, but I also don't. It's like the part of the deal is I don't get to do that to you either. Like you, the imperial you, right? So it's like I can give you crap because we're friends about it. Your Cybertruck, but at the end of the day, cool. Like as far as I know, you made the money to buy it and you chose it and you like it. And it's like if you're checking all those boxes, hell yeah. Like get another one, right? Like because I want to be able to do the same thing. It's just when we decide that the other guy can't do the thing.
Oh yeah,
like that's
exactly.
when it goes sideways. Like oh, oops. And I think that gets back to the whole libertarian thing that I said before. There's this kind of like I'm cool with libertarianism if it's for all of us. Right. And I'm totally cool with free speech if it's for all of us. Like absolutely all that. But it's when it's like, well, libertarian, I don't want to pay taxes. But you're going to have to do your part. I'm like, wait a second. Like, I thought we were libertarian. I thought it was me. Like, well, no, not really.
I love it.
All right, man. This was fun. This was a great time.
Awesome. I'm going to edit this and get this up, get this up and uploaded. And this will be fun.
Let's see. Cool to see what kind of reaction you get.
Let's see. And I think,
whatever you're percolating on, let me know. I want to hear about it. It's gonna be awesome.
For our next one, maybe we'll do we'll each bring 2. That way we can go deep on each one instead of having to
it's gonna be our inclination.
I love it. I love it.
Just to go deep.
All right, man. I love it. Good
Talk
checking in with you. I'll talk to you again soon. All right. Peace. Bye.